Welcome to Talking in Common, a podcast of all things lifestyle, family, relationships, well-being, kids and culture. This is not a how-to, but an insight into the lives of ourselves and others and how we all manage to get by. Hosted by myself, Kate Gadinsky, and my co-host, Sophie Panton. Take a listen and let's find out what we all have in common.
And we're back on the air.
I feel like I've been staring at you all day through a screen. Probably because I have
Oh,
been.
that's probably because we have.
All
How you
day
feeling?
long. Good.
Good?
I'm excited for today's episode.
I know, me too. We've actually literally just come off the back of an amazing, comforting, nourishing, informative chat with today's guests. So I think we're both feeling, I don't know, I'm just feeling like quite chill and grounded and nourished from
I feel
the
like
chat.
I learnt so much as well. So I'm feeling a little bit more kind of empowered as a parent.
Yes.
And a
Tell
bit
me
more informed.
Tell it to me.
And I'm going to go downstairs after we finish this and hopefully
Aware
I'm going
parent
to
the shit out of
be a little bit more aware as I parent. So I won't introduce our guest yet because we haven't talked about what we have in common.
What have we got in common, my darling? There's always something good.
Probably trying to navigate these big feelings that come with young children.
Totally. Our emotional little children that we've both got at the moment.
Yeah.
That everyone probably, most of our listeners has all got.
But,
yeah.
You know, just talking about different tools and different methods and different things that we've both tried, which we seem to be talking about a lot lately. Sort of not comparing, as in comparing, you know, ourselves to each other, but comparing notes of different things we've tried. And it's a bit like that when you're parenting. It's all about sort of trial and error and learning from your mistakes. We all make mistakes. We're human.
Absolutely. But it's a little bit bittersweet because today's our very last guest episode.
I know.
We're not going to be talking to a guest for a little while. We're definitely going to follow this episode up with a recap, as we always do, and remember and reflect on all the great conversations and things that we've learnt. So we'll do that. But yeah, you know, it's a little bit
guest
bittersweet.
episode.
I know.
So should we get into it? I think because it is a good one and there is lots to share. We had the incredible Lael Stone join us.
Yes, we're very excited to introduce her to you today. Lael is a parenting educator, a consultant. She's a public speaker, co-creator of Woodline Primary School, which she tells us all about this and the philosophy and the creation of it. It's amazing. As well as being a co-host on the Aware Parenting podcast, which is so awesome. And I highly recommend it for all parents who are interested in learning more about loving limits and boundaries with a more gentle approach, you know, close attachment, love and connection. She talks in depth on all of these topics with such a wealth of knowledge and experience. So highly recommend that.
She's also a mother of 3 herself and an incredibly generous and wise woman. We spoke to Lael all about the concept of aware parenting and what this means, young kids with big feelings and how we as parents can navigate this, finding balance and boundaries, as well as sort of helping and nurturing our children to self-regulate themselves and so much more. You are absolutely going to love this chat. Here she is.
Lael, welcome to Talking in Common. Thank you so much for joining us. We're both super excited to chat to you today. But firstly, how are you?
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I am actually a bit weary. You know, as we're heading to the end of the year and all the things are culminating and it's been a really big year and I'm great, but I can feel that, you know, that kind of bone tiredness where you're like, I really need a break. So I feel like I'm kind of limping to the end. I've got about another 3 weeks of work and then I'm having a whole month, which is going to be amazing. So
good.
Yeah, I'm great, but it's been a big year.
Yeah, it's so wild when you get to the end of the year and like, you know, it's like such an exciting time. There's always so much going on, so much to celebrate, so much socializing, but like it's always so exhausting. Like I don't know why we all do it every year after year.
My kids are so exhausted actually at this time of the year. Just every day coming home from school and kinder and they are wrecked.
Yeah.
Absolutely
It's
wrecked.
big. I think we Yeah, I don't think we've got the balance right at all as a culture.
Mm.
No, I don't think we do. So it is towards the end of the year. I often find there's not much learning going on. Everyone's just a bit like, oh, how do we get to this place where we need a break? Which ideally isn't how it should be, really. But that's the
I
way that
agree.
we've learnt to do it.
So, Lael, can you start by telling us and our audience what aware parenting is and what it entails?
Yeah, for sure. So, Aware Parenting was created by Dr. Aletha Solter. So she's a Swiss American psychologist. So she wrote her first book, The Aware Baby, in the 1980s. I look back and think she was well ahead of her time as far as awareness around trauma and healing and all those kind of things. So she's written quite a few books, and her philosophy, really, what aware parenting is, it's kind of got three main components to it. The first one is about close sensitive attunement. So really it's about being able to tune into your child. So, when they walk in the room, you can just see that there's something off. It's being able to read their cues and be attuned and attached to them. The second element is about using non-punitive discipline. So it's not using punishments and rewards to get our kids to do what we want them to do, which I often usually joke then parents go, but what do you do then? If you can't do that, what do we do? And the third element is healing from stress and trauma. So aware parenting really looks at that, using things like laughing, play, crying, as in being with your child when they cry, allowing the expression of feelings, helps to move stress and trauma to allow children to come back into balance. So can be really similar to classic attachment parenting on some level, but I think it goes that next step, which is really around understanding that all humans have stresses and big feelings and traumas. And when we have a safe, attuned adult to help our children unpack or offload those, then it allows the child to let go and not carry those stresses and traumas so they can move forward in life being the best version of themselves.
It's such a beautiful middle ground of different parenting styles that I've, accidentally practiced myself or that I've read about, and that's why I love everything that you educate and talk about, because it does feel like a really nice kind of middle ground.
Yeah. Well, for me, I found aware parenting. I have 3 kids there, 22, 19 and 14. And I didn't really come across aware parenting until I had my third child. So I spent kind of the first 7 or 8 years kind of just making it up, trying to figure out how to do it, but not doing it well. Like I knew I kind of didn't want to smack my kids and I didn't really want to use timeouts, but I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know, I really thought the whole idea of being a good mum was keeping your kids happy all the time. So I was a pretty permissive parent and I really spent a lot of time trying to keep my kids happy, which I'll just tell you does not work and is very, very exhausting.
It's so exhausting.
Yeah, so exhausting. Yeah. And really when I came across aware parenting, I was like, oh, this is what I've been looking for, because it really helped me understand what was going on from a behavior point of view. It helped me understand how to navigate big feelings and emotions. It also really taught me how to take care of myself and this stuff so I could be the parent that I wanted to be. So I only came across it, I'd had 2 children, and then when my third came along, that's when I was like, wow. And I really feel it was so valuable having that information, a few years down the track, to then be able to see what I'd done with my first 2 kids and then how we could create healing with them, and then doing it with my youngest from a baby was a real gift.
That's what I wanted to ask you. What was your path in getting to it? So, did you get to your third child and you sort of actively started to seek something different, or did you just happen to come across something that resonated with you? Or
it actually came about because of trauma. So I had a really challenging birth experience with my third baby. We had a bit of a life or death experience, and I'd spent many, many years before that working in childbirth. So I was a childbirth educator and a doula and a postnatal counsellor. So I'd worked a lot in birth, and we had a really challenging third birth experience. And it was there was a lot of interventions, a lot of touch and go of whether she would live, whether I would live. Like it was a big traumatic experience.
Wow.
And all those things that we know are really beautiful when you have a baby, like skin on skin and the first gaze and breastfeeding. Like my baby spent the first 4 days of her life in a coma, and we didn't think that she was going to live. And she was, she had more interventions and tubes and all that stuff than, it was pretty full on. So when we did finally get to take her home nearly 2 weeks later, I remember looking at her thinking she is a stressed baby. I could see it. Her eyes were wide off, and a lot of times she'd have these very jerky movements. She wasn't what I knew other babies to be. And I remember looking at her thinking, you've been through a trauma, I've been through a
Mm,
trauma. Like, how do we heal this? Because I
mm,
know enough to know that this can have an impact on life.
yeah.
Mm.
And I was really just at this, like, okay, I need to do something to support my baby. And my midwife actually told me about the book called The Aware Baby, written by Letha Solter. And so when I read it, I just was like, whoa, okay, this makes so much sense about parenting across the board, but also about how to help my baby heal from this
Mm,
trauma we'd been through, and also myself. So that's how I kind of I came across it, because I really was just like, what am I going to do? We've been through this really massive experience, and I don't want her to carry that in her body for the rest of her life. And I also needed to heal from the experience. And so that's what really brought me to aware parenting. And it was just the biggest gift ever, because it really changed my life. Once I started working with the philosophies with my baby and then with my older children, I just was like, wow, this is a game changer. And
Mm.
then my kind of work lent into that, and the rest is history.
wow. So, from what we've sort of already learned, the foundation of aware parenting is heavily based on connection with the parent and child. Can you talk us through the importance of this, but also just what a connected relationship looks like between a parent and their child?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I often talk about is that we want our children to know that all of them is welcome. So
Mm,
many of us grew up in a behaviorism paradigm, which means that we learn from a pretty young age that we are rewarded when we're good, and we might be
mm,
punished, or a parent removes their energy from them if we're bad, if we're deemed bad. And really, I guess, where parenting looks at that there is no good and bad. And I explain it often like this: there's just, for me, children in balance or out of balance.
mm,
No
Mm.
child wants to be naughty and bad. They don't want to hit their little brother, and they don't want to behave in those ways. It's often a whole lot of feelings or stresses or traumas that are sitting in a child's body that makes them behave in a certain way. So I often talk about our job is to learn to look behind the behavior. So when a child is acting out, what we want to do as a parent is be curious and go, oh, I wonder what's going on here. Now,
yeah.
is there a basic need, right? Is it that my child is hungry, so we feed them and then they're fine, right? Or is it that we haven't seen each other all day and we need some cuddles and connection and then
Mm,
they feel better? Do they need a bit of presence with me? Do we need to play a little bit and have a giggle and then they're fine? Or is there a whole lot of accumulated stresses and traumas that are holding in their body that need to come out? And how can I support that? Do we need to set a limit for them to push up against? Do we need to bring some presence to them? And can we hold space for their big tears and feelings to come out so they can find their way back into balance? Because tears and laughter are the ways that we begin to reset our nervous system, particularly
mm,
as little children. So, when we're looking from an aware parenting point of view, it is about being attuned to our child and connected enough to read them. So I often invite parents to scan their kids. So imagine when your child walks in the room, to just do a little scan of them, to go, well, where are they? Are they in balance? Are they out of balance? And you'll know if they're in balance because they're usually singing, they're
mm,
telling you excitedly about what's going on, they're making eye contact. You ask them to, can you please pick up the toys there? And they're like, yep, no worries. And they do it. It's usually when they're cooperative, when they're kind to their siblings. Like, that's when you can see a child is in balance. That's their natural
mm,
state. When a child's out of balance, it's, when they walk into the room and they hit their, brother in the head, or, you ask them to do something and they don't listen to you. And then you ask them again and then they stick their tongue out at you, or they yell, why do I have to do everything, or whatever, right?
yeah.
We see that there's often a lot of resistance in what's going on. And for me, I often invite parents to go, that's when we have to be curious and go, okay, they're out of balance. And
Mm,
why might they be out of balance? And the why doesn't matter as much as how do we help them come back into balance? And
yeah.
so that requires connection from us. It requires us to be connected enough to ourselves to be curious when our child walks into the room instead of reactive. And
Mm,
it requires us to be connected to our kids, to be able to read those cues or to understand when there's something off or something happening for them, so that we can then support them to find their way back into balance.
yeah.
So when we're met with a child that is seemingly out of balance, what would the first thing that we should do? I mean, scan them, understand, okay, they are, they're looking frustrated, angry, they
Mhm.
they seem out of balance. Like, what should we do in
Yeah.
that moment?
So firstly, it's always a need. If there's a need there, so if it's like, oh god, they're probably hungry. It's we meet their
Okay.
needs first. Do they need food? Do they need water? Is there a loud, scary noise there? Do they need a cuddle, and that makes them feel better? We're
Mm.
always going for the needs first, right? We have to see what if we meet that need, if it feels okay. The second thing that I often do is sometimes is tuning into, do they need some information in this moment? Because a lot of the time for children, they need information to help them feel safe or help them feel secure. And when they don't feel safe and secure, that's often when they act out. So my
Mm.
first thing is a need first. The second thing is information, which is, let's just say there was a really massive noise outside and then they started to get freaked out, and
Mm.
what they might need is, that was a truck, honey, and they're doing some
Mm-hmm.
building there, and that's what happened. And when we give them that information, they're like, oh, okay. Or how that could look is, we're at the park, and they're having a great time playing, and the next minute we just pick them up and walk off, right? And
Yeah,
they start to
no
resist.
warning.
And we need to say to them, hey, we're actually going to leave the park in 5 minutes. What would you like to do before we go? And then should we race to the car? Or we give them that information, and then that makes them feel better. So usually I start with those two things. And then the third thing that we'll often go to is, if you can see your child's a bit out of balance, you can see there's something going on, can we bring some playfulness, or can we bring some connection to it? So,
Mm.
for example, let's just say your 4-year-old has got a
Mm.
ball and they're throwing it against the wall, and you say to them, sweetheart, we don't throw balls against the wall. If you want to throw the ball, you can throw the ball outside. And they kind of look at you and smirk and keep doing it. Now,
Mm.
you've kind of told them what you want to do, right? You've given them some information and they're still kind of doing it. So what you could meet them with is some playfulness and go, oh, is it ball against the wall time? Is it? What if it's about ball against mummy's butt outside? Let's see if you can hit me on the bum, right? You
My
invite them
4-year-old
into
would love
some
that.
you invite them into some play. Like, kids cannot resist play, and that will meet that need for a bit of connection. You go outside, they try to throw the ball at you. If there's laughter, laughter is one of the most beautiful stress
Yeah.
releases we can have.
Mm.
We can do 5 minutes of play, which can help a child find their way back into balance. So
Mm.
that could be a really beautiful thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
However, if we go back to the ball story, if you invite them to throw the ball outside with you or do something playful, and they don't take the bait or they don't want to do it, and then they keep doing it and looking at you, then what they're asking for is a limit. And my lovely co-host of my podcast, Marion, calls it loving limits, which I think is such a beautiful term,
Mm.
because often we think boundaries are all about us yelling and, this is what I've said and this is how it goes. Whereas a loving limit requires us to be calm and centered. And I often explain it like in keeping our heart open while we're setting a limit. And so what we might do is we might walk over and say, sweetheart, I'm not willing for you to throw the ball at the wall. I'm going to take the ball now. And, what they might do is try and run away, or they might try and throw the ball at you, or they
Mm.
might struggle with you. But what you're doing is you're actually setting a boundary with the understanding that when a child is out of balance, sometimes what they're doing is looking for a boundary to push up against to move some of the feelings that may be sitting there. So when we
Mm.
say, I'm not willing for you to throw that ball anymore, they might push up against us like, no, I want to throw the ball. And all of a sudden there might be some big tears and feelings. And what
Yeah.
we are wanting to do in that moment is to stay really calm and say, it's a no for the ball, but you can tell me how you feel. And we hold space for those big feelings that might be brewing underneath the surface to come out. Now, many parents will probably relate to this in the sense of, if your child's been at daycare for the day or kinder or even school, and they come home and, they want a drink, and you give them the blue cup, and then they go, I want the green cup. And so you swap cups, and then they're like, no, I want the red cup. And all of a sudden you give them the wrong cup or whatever it is. And their reaction is massive, and they lose it because of the colored cup, or because you cut their sandwich the wrong way, or because
Yeah.
their sister had more ice cream. It's not usually about the ice cream or the cup or, the sandwich. It's about the accumulation of feelings that may be sitting there for them. And in that moment, they're looking for something to push up against to allow those feelings to come out. So sometimes that requires us to set a boundary and a limit when we can see they're out of balance. And, and a classic sign with this is many families is when a child is out of balance, they'll make a beeline for their sibling and pick a fight with their
Mm.
sibling.
Mm.
So they'll all of a sudden want what the sibling's got, or they'll throw something at the sibling. And that's where a child's really asking us to step in and say, hey, I need some support here to move the feelings that are kind of driving why I'm behaving in this way. And sometimes that looks like setting a limit. It's holding space for the tears and the frustrations or whatever's sitting there to move. And as many parents will know this, is once that anger and those tears have moved, your child will come back into balance. They'll kind of want to come up for a cuddle, and then they'll look at you and go, "What's for dinner?" Right? And then they just move on like there's no storm that has just passed, right? It'll just be like, I'm back online again. And I think that, what we're looking for in those moments as adults is to understand there is always a reason for the behavior. There is always something behind the behavior. And it is our job to decode that and help our kids come back into balance.
So, yesterday I picked up my 6-year-old, she's nearly 7, from school, and she was definitely out of balance. I could just tell straight away she wasn't herself. She's highly sensitive generally anyway, but she was a bit all over the place, a little bit scattered. Her little sister was with me. She was just already annoyed by her little sister, like not interested in seeing her. Got into the car and she kind of looked like she was going to cry, and I was asking her if everything was okay, and I'm just tired, and Lulu's annoying me. And then they kind of bickered the whole way home. We got home, then she realized she dropped something that she made out of her school bag that she said, "I've spent so much time on this," and she was bawling her eyes out. And I was trying to say to her, "Darling, it's okay. We'll see if we can find it." Nothing was kind of making her calm down. And eventually I really kind of had to not push at her to get her to tell me what was wrong, but I could sense that something had happened at school. And I'm finding with her that the more we try and ask her, the more she's kind of resisting, because I think she worries that she's going to get in trouble or she's going to upset, a friend. And eventually she did open up and she told us that something had happened at school. And while she was still upset, I could tell as she was talking about it, she really started to sort of calm down, and then kind of started laughing, and we could make a bit of a joke. But then she sort of proceeded to say, "But I'm not feeling well and I don't want to go to school tomorrow." And it's so tricky, I find, because she is sort of at this age where, friendships are so important. And if something's kind of not happening, if something's happening that makes her feel uncomfortable, then she just doesn't know, I guess, how to deal with it. And she also doesn't want to talk about it. So it's really, really tricky. And her poor little sister's getting yelled at and pushed around because, Nina's obviously feeling frustrated and upset because of an incident that happened at school. And sometimes I just go, "Oh my God, I don't know how to fix it for her." And I know that that's not the answer, that we can't fix everything for our kids. But anyway,
It's
parenting.
really tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, you just touched on something then, which is so big, which is that we know we shouldn't want to fix stuff for our kids, but every single cell in our body goes, "I don't want you to hurt, and I don't want this to be hard, and I want to make it okay for you." And that's one of the most challenging parts of parenting, is actually to sit beside our kids in the hard stuff and not fix it. Because when we do, we rob them of developing that beautiful resilience and understanding about how to navigate tricky things. And, it's beautiful that she was able to get to the place where she could say to you, "This feels really hard," or "This has happened with my friend." And, part of it is really just listening to the feelings around it. It feels really hard when your friend doesn't want to play with you, or,
Should you push them to tell you, though? That's what I struggle with, because when she sort of resists, and sometimes I'll have to say to her, "Look, you're not in trouble. This is a safe space. Like, if it's me talking to her or my husband, or if it's both of us, we can share anything amongst ourselves, and we just want to make sure that you're okay." And often she'll resist. Then you have to ask her a few times, and then eventually that's when she gets upset, and then she'll tell us, and then she's fine afterwards.
Yeah. So I think, again, it depends on the child. Some children will just be like, "Here's all my feelings. Here's everything going on." Others will make you work harder for it. So I think it firstly comes back to knowing your child. So, that the story you told, Kate's beautiful in the sense of that, she got upset about something she made, and often when a child's reaction is way bigger than what is kind of warranted, we can
Mm.
often presume that there is something else sitting underneath the surface of that, right?
Yeah.
So amazing that you can go, all right, there's something else sitting there. And I guess what I would do in that situation is just hold space for the upset that she dropped her thing from school and that's not great. And then as she moves through those feelings, you could just offer her, is there anything else going on for you, sweetheart? And just leave it there. Right now, she might not want to go there just yet, and that's
Mm.
okay. And it might be that half an hour later she picks a fight with her sister again, and you can be like, all right, there's still more there.
Yeah.
And you need to step in and hold a boundary. And it might be that she brings it up then. Like some children hold on to it for a little bit until they're ready to discuss it. And I think the thing is too, it's really important as a parent to remember, we know often that something's sitting there for our child, but if you were to imagine that you had some stuff going on for you and your partner's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. Like,
It's
what's going
so
on? How are you
annoying,
feeling,
isn't
right?
it?
And they're poking at you the whole time to tell you to go, you'd be like, I'm not going to tell
Not in
you.
the
This
mood.
doesn't feel
Yeah.
good. Yeah. So
Mm.
we want to keep working on safety, right? And emotional safety is connection. And that can be sometimes when we can see our child holding on to something, it could be, right, I'm going to just spend 5 or 10 minutes of just connection time with them. So you might go
Mm.
into a room and go, do you want to have a thumb wrestle? Or you might just do handstands together, or just something that's fun and connected to just bring some safety. And within that, as that child feels that safety with you, that you might find that they snuggle up on your lap, and it's in that moment that they might go, something happened at school today, and share with you. So it's a dance, right? It's a delicate dance of sometimes leaning in, waiting, being patient. At her age, she's still learning, is it safe to bring these feelings out? And so we
Mm.
want to keep making sure your words are beautiful. Like, it's safe. You can tell me anything. You're not going to be in trouble. And it's kind of working on that safety as much as possible, that emotional safety, so they know that they can tell you. And,
Yeah.
the big piece of that too is when children do tell us stuff that's hard, how we respond is really important, which is we've got to respond with calm and with a centeredness.
Mm.
If we start going, oh, wow, that girl at school is not okay, and I'm going to call her mother,
Very
and
hard not to
that's
do
not
that.
right. Then all of a sudden our child's going to be like, oh, God, okay, this is a big deal,
Yeah.
and mum's not coping with this. Or
Yeah.
if we jump in to fix it, then that's one of the other things that a child learns to go, oh, I'm not going to share this because, mum or dad's going to jump in with a fix.
Yeah.
Or if we, judge or freak out, they're going to be like, oh, this is too much for them. So our job is to be super anchored and neutral if we can. And really it's to say less. It's just to go, that sounds hard. Tell me more. And you just listen to the venting. You listen to what was tricky and what was hard. And then at the end of it, you could say to her, do you want me to give you some ideas of what you could do tomorrow? Or did you want me to just listen? Now,
Yeah.
sometimes kids go, I just want you to listen, and you leave it at that. Or she might be like, I don't want to go to school tomorrow. And then you could say, you feel scared about going to school. You're worried about what might happen.
Mm.
And then you could offer things like, should we play? Or should we work through some ideas or play on what we could do when you do see your friend tomorrow? Should I be
Yeah.
your friend or should I be you, right? And we bring some playfulness into it again.
Yeah.
And so she might be like, you be me. And you go, okay. And then you might be a bit silly and she'll giggle and laugh. And then you go, you be the friend. Okay, what could you say? Or what would she say? And all of a sudden we're giving our children some beautiful tools and ideas of how to navigate tricky situations
Yeah.
through play, through connection, through all that kind of stuff. And sometimes that will work and sometimes it won't. Sometimes they won't take the bait of wanting to play that through. Sometimes they need to sit a bit more in the fear of, I just don't want to go, it feels hard. And we can work through some bigger fears and stories there, of just listening more to help them move through what's sitting there.
Yeah.
They're all such great suggestions,
Yeah.
particularly, Kate and I were actually just talking about beforehand about that, Nina's scenario that Kate just explained, and how she wants to make sure that Nina can sort of stick up for herself. So that idea of role play and giving them that opportunity to almost like predict what might happen and then have those little tools of responses when that does happen, that's amazing. That's an amazing suggestion.
Vital. I did the same thing with my 14-year-old daughter 2 days ago. So 14-year-olds, it's kind of the same problems as what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like a therapy technique too with adults as well, right?
Yeah, totally. And she was having trouble with a friend and she needed to set some boundaries. And I said to her, okay, do you want to role play some words you could say or some ideas? And she's like, yeah. And so we talk through some words, some phrases, some sentences. And she's like, yeah, okay, that feels good. I could say that one, right? So
Yeah.
we're constantly teaching our beautiful kids and guiding them to learn how to empower themselves. But sometimes we need to give them words they can use. Sometimes we need to role model what that can look like. Like that's really important scaffolding that we're doing to help them understand and have tools to be able to navigate tricky
Yeah.
situations.
Amazing. Another scenario that I know a lot of parents will relate to and would love some guidance on is something else that Kate and I are both struggling with at the moment with kinder and childcare drop-offs. And with this, more aware or attachment style parenting of making them feel really safe and comforted, when you drop them off and they scream and cry and cling on to you and say they don't want to go, even though we know that they are having a good time there and they are well looked after and they are safe and that it's all fine 30 seconds after we leave, what are your suggestions in that moment of them not wanting to let you go? Because that's it's an awful one for the parent, more so for the
Daughter's
parent,
been
I'm
doing it
sure.
for like 8 weeks straight now. Every single day she goes.
It's really tough. Like, firstly, I just want to have a whole lot of compassion to for you guys and to any parent who's listening who's going through it, because it's really, really, really tough, that scenario. I mean, I would probably start with, how do we do some work before we even get there? So what that might look like is, separation and big feelings around separation is quite normal and quite common. And there's usually a few elements that come into play with it. So there's the element of how we feel about it as the adult, and the child is often tuning into us around it. So if many of us have stories that we still carry around separation when we were little, right? And potentially our parents didn't have even as much awareness as what we do. So we were probably just shoved off, you'll be right, and we had to learn how to suck it up. So for many of us as adults, we can have feelings that we've still got around it. But also, that it feels really horrible when we're seeing our child upset and we're leaving them. And so if we're still holding a story that goes, oh, this isn't okay and it's not going to be all right, and we get to the night before kinder drop off and we're dreading it and we're feeling that, our children are going to be picking up on our energies firstly to go, this is unsafe, right? So we firstly as adults need to get support for ourselves so that we feel neutral and central, so that we know, hey, it's okay for you to cry and this is a safe place for them to go. Exactly what you said, Sophie, but we want to make sure that energetically that's what our body is saying as well. Because if we're in the like, oh, this is terrible and horrible, our children are constantly tuning into us. They're feeling us. So they're going to be like, oh yeah, but this is not okay because your body's telling me something's not all right here. So I think that first thing is really important, that we need to make sure we take care of our needs, which is maybe just talking to a friend about it or a therapist, like just getting out all your fears and worries so that you can be more central and neutral, when we do it. The other thing that we can do beforehand is do lots of connection time and separation games before we have to say goodbye. So that could be in the morning, and I know mornings are a full-on hustle, but even 10 minutes of play and connection to fill up your child's cup so that they feel they've had some presence and being seen with you in the morning can make a difference for when we need to separate. So, if we get up in the morning and we're doing that hustle and we're kind of ordering the kids around and and all the crazy, and then we put them in the car and then we're going to say goodbye, like that feels a big stress for a child because they haven't had that kind of fill up of connection before they have to say goodbye to you. So if we can slow our mornings down a bit, which is almost virtually impossible, but we could try, or what can we do to have like 10 or 15 minutes of connection and play in the morning to help them feel better, because that can make separating feel better. So they're things that we can do beforehand. Talking about kinder or daycare or whatever, and holding space at home for feelings is a good thing. So for a lot of kids who have issues going, if you talk about, say, hey, it's a kinder day tomorrow, they might go, I don't want to go to kinder, right? And
my daughter asks me now, do I have to go tomorrow? Is it a kinder day? Or is it no? Oh, she'll tell me it's a home day tomorrow. And she'll start to preempt.
Yeah. And so what we do naturally is go, yes, but it'll be fine because Charlie will be there to play with, or your favorite teacher's
You're
there,
gonna have
right?
so much fun.
Yeah.
She's like, nah.
No, I'm not. So what we need to do in that moment is when we say it's a kinder day tomorrow and they go, I don't want to go, is to take a breath and go, you don't want to go. Tell me about it. Tell me all the things that feel hard about it. Because what we're doing is when we're jumping into, no, it will be fun, we're completely disregarding their feelings of this feels big for me.
Mm.
And so we want to give them the space to offload, this feels really huge for me.
Mhm.
And if they can cry, I don't want to go, it doesn't feel big. Like that is again a stress. It's a release of the feelings that feel big there. And we
Okay.
want to be calm. We want to be like, yep, I know it feels scary going to kinder and I'm here and tell me more about it. So the more work we can do at home, the less we have to do in those moments at kinder, right?
Mm.
So listening to the feelings at home is really important. Some attachment play before we go is great, making sure we're all right. And the other side of kinder, I'll get to the point of when we get there in a minute, but the other side of kinder is playing kinders. Like, so when we get home from the day
Mm.
and we want to have some playtime with them, we could be like, do you want to play kinders? And that can be, again, a really beautiful way of children, how they process how it happens. And it could be that they want you to be them and they're the teacher, and you might role play, I have to say goodbye, I don't want to say goodbye. And you find your child will be like, it's okay, you're going to be all right.
Yeah.
They'll play out what they need to. And again, it's another beautiful way of how they process that separation and saying goodbye. So
Mm.
that's something you could do. Also playing games like hide and seek and stuff like that. They're separation games, which are brilliant, of like, we're here and then I'm away and then we come back again. They're all beautiful ways that children can process stuff that's
Mm.
happening in the moment when we are driving to kinder, and you might find the feelings come already in the car. And again, you can be like, I know it feels hard, but we are going, right? You're looking for that kind of what we call the sweet spot of where the feelings bubble to the surface and we can hold it. So, my youngest had some big feelings about going to kinder. And, we'd be driving to kinder and she'd be like, I don't want to go. And so I would pull out at the front of kinder, and sometimes I'd be in the car with her for 20 minutes just listening to her tears around, I'm not going. And I'd be like, I know you want to go, sweetie, but we are going to go in. And I'd just hold that limit lovingly, really trusting she had to get out all the big feelings first. And then often after she'd had a big cry, then we'd walk in really quite well. And it'd be like, and then she'd be happy to be there for the day. She'd kind of move the feelings that are there. Now, for some children, those tears don't start until you're about to leave. So again, what's really important is information, is saying to your child, when we get to kinder today, mummy's going to stay for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. We're going to read one book and then I'm going to hand you over to Cheryl or whoever is the kinder teacher. And she's going to be there with you, and it's okay for you to have a cry, and I'll be back in a few hours. So you get really clear on what's going to happen and you give them the information. So then when we go there and we do read that book, but then if they're like, can you read another one and can you do this and you can do that, we kind of have to stick to being clear about what we said we're going to do, because then it often prolongs the feelings and the expectation. And then the other piece, which I feel really, I guess, passionate about, is we want to hand our child over to someone who is okay with their feelings and their upset and doesn't necessarily move into distracting and making it all okay. Now, I know that doesn't happen in every centre because, staff are stretched and, some don't understand listening to feelings. But if you can hand your child over to someone that they feel safe with, and that caregiver is going, it's okay to be upset, it's okay that mummy's going, and I can just be with you and give you a cuddle and you can have a cry, then again, they're going to move the feelings that are sitting there that allow them to get it out so that then they can go on with their day. Because when we move into distraction or fixing, those feelings are still sitting there under the surface, right? They haven't been moved, and then they'll come back the next day and the next day and the next day. So the way I look at it is we want to give our children the opportunity to move the feelings around. This feels hard for me. It's hard saying goodbye for you for the day. It feels really big. And even though we know the benefits of, children development and learning and all that kind of gorgeous stuff that happens, and we know that they can have a good time, being able to hold space for the stuff that feels tricky is really, really important.
So I know at my daughter's kinder, they ended up creating like a little quiet corner or a little cozy, I think she calls it the cozy corner for her, which she loves now. And often, apparently, when my husband or I leave, she wants to have a bit of alone time.
Mm-hmm.
So she likes to go and sit in that. And that seems to work really well, they say, for the rest of the day. But I find actually when I go to leave, and that's generally when she gets really, really worked up, I've tried sort of staying with her for a bit longer, which makes it for her so much worse. And they've sort of advised me that the best thing to do is come in, do her little routine that she does, tell her what we're doing, like what you just said, and then virtually just say, Mummy loves you, and walk out the door, which I find so tricky because I can hear her then screaming as I leave. And I just go,
Yes.
should I just stay for half an hour
Yeah.
till she calms down? But I've found that she doesn't always calm down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or am I doing her, it's better for her if I just leave? Because when I
Yeah.
pick her up, she's always happy.
Yeah. Look, I think every child is different. And I think, some children will jump into life and transitions really easily, and others are going to take time. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I would come back to, you know your daughter better than anyone, Kate. You know how she is and how she works in the world. And what I'd be looking at is, sometimes prolonging the stuff can make it feel harder, right? And because often we're like, oh God, this doesn't feel okay. And they're picking up on our energy and they're like, it isn't okay. And so that can feel tricky. And I think it's about finding what feels safe and right for you and working with your caregivers around what feels a good option.
Yeah.
I mean, look, some people don't like the idea of that and their kids don't go to kinder or daycare or they homeschool, and that works beautifully for them. Like, I think every family is different around how we do it. My big thing is always coming back to, am I handing my child over to someone who sees them, who is connected to them, who's attuned to them, who will listen to their feelings? And if the answer for me is yes, then I go, okay, well, I feel safe leaving, right? Because children will often push up against stuff, even if, some kids go through phases, even when you're at home and maybe your partner's there, right, who's their parent, and you're like, I'm going to go to the shops. And then they go, no, you can't leave. And then we go, oh God, they get really upset because I can't leave. Well, I better not go to the shops. Whereas actually, that they're at home in their house that's safe and there are other parents looking after them who loves them. It's okay for you to go, and there's probably just some big feelings they need to get out around that. And I think that's the same kind of thing. Do we feel safe enough in leaving them in those situations where the people caring for them and know that they're cared for, and that they're just working through a bit of a story to help those feelings move? That's what I would be looking at.
While we're still on the topic of big feelings, because it's such a big topic and there's a million scenarios that we could talk through to get answers that we need, apart from crying and tantrums and maybe like sort of sadness or even a bit of anxiety, I just wanted to ask about more anger and frustration and how that presents in children, particularly in my 2.5-year-old or almost 3-year-old. She's going through this phase of roaring at us when she's clearly feeling annoyed or frustrated or she's not getting what she wants. And I know it's really common. I've seen, kids do it before, and I've seen cousins and other kids at childcare, and I know it's really normal, but how do we deal with that,
Well, firstly, I want to say bravo to your little girl who's like, here's how I'm feeling and I'm going to let it out. And as much as it's confronting, I'm always like, it's better out than locked in. Right?
Okay.
So when she's roaring at you, you could be like, whoa, yeah, you feel mad. I get it. Tell me more. Right?
Okay.
You want to welcome it. We don't want to suppress it, because we do not want your beautiful little girl to grow up going, my anger and my feelings are not okay. We don't. We want her to go, you have a voice, you have every right to get angry, and there are healthy ways to express that.
Yeah.
So what we want to model is healthy ways for her to feel that anger. So if, you won't let her have another biscuit or something and she's like roaring at you, you could be like, yeah, you're mad, honey. Let it out. What out? Stamp your feet. Sorry?
Her name's Honey.
Is it? It's Honey. Oh, perfect.
It's like, how did you know her name?
Perfect. So, you're like, yeah, bring it. Now, if that then roaring, which isn't going to hurt anyone, it's just her expressing it. If that roaring then moves into hitting someone, then that's when we need to step in, right? And that's where
more the limits.
We'd come over and we'd go, I'm not willing for you to hit anyone, honey, and it is okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hurt someone else's body. So let's find a way we can move this big mad feeling. Like we really want to teach our children that anger and sad and frustration, they're not bad. They're not negative feelings. They're just feelings. And we really want to teach them healthy ways to move it, healthy ways to express it, where we don't project it onto someone else. But what we do is we move it so that we can find our way back into balance. And the way that we teach our kids that is by modeling it ourselves.
Yeah.
So that when you're angry, you could stand in the kitchen and go, rah! And you could be like saying to Honey, I've got big, I'm going to roar. And she might be like, yeah, Mom, go for it. We want to to show, we want to be like, I got to put on music and do some angry dancing, or, I need to go outside and yell at the trees. Like, we have to model healthy ways to feel how we're feeling, because if we
Okay.
just move into it's not okay and we shouldn't do that, then we're
Mm,
basically saying to our kids, this part of how you feel is not acceptable. And that's not
mm.
true, because all feelings are just feelings. We just have to find healthy ways to express them.
So true. That's amazing. So another thing that I wanted to chat to you about was more about us on the parent side of things. And when we get to that kind of like breaking point, those trigger points, that acting out of survival, potentially yelling or doing something that doesn't even sit with us naturally, or, came out of, utter frustration at our wits' end because of our children's behavior. How do we as parents deal with that side of things?
So when we're really losing it. Is that
Yeah,
what you
like,
mean?
your kids sort of push you to your limits, to the point where you might end up yelling at them. And then you think to
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
my God, I never wanted to yell at them. I don't
Yeah.
know where that came from,
Yeah.
but they do. They push your buttons.
I do. Yeah, that's their job.
Yeah,
Their job is to
yeah.
go,
And then you feel so
I'm going to,
guilty that you've
yeah,
yelled.
you do.
Yeah, and then you feel so guilty.
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember your child's job is to help you evolve. That's what they're
Yeah.
here for.
Mm,
They're
mm,
here to help you be the best version of yourself and
mhm,
work through your own crap so you don't place it onto them, right? That's their job. They're like, this is not mine. I'm going to just push the exact right button so you can work through what you need to work through. So
mm,
the first thing I would say is, deep compassion to every parent. Everyone has yelled at some point. We've all behaved in ways we don't like. Nobody wants to be doing that, but we're doing it usually because there's a few reasons going on. So one of the first reasons is we are not getting our needs met. And that can be because we are tired, because we haven't even eaten lunch, because we're worried about
mm,
money, because we're juggling all the things. We know we're better parents when we've had good night's sleep and dinner's made and there's money in the bank and our partner's being all lovely. We're like, yeah, we can roll with this, right? But we live in stressful lives. We have a lot of stresses going on. We live in environments where we don't have the village, all that kind of stuff. So
mm,
one of the first things to be kind to ourselves around is that sometimes we do react in these ways because we haven't got our needs met. And my benchmark used to be this. When I started yelling at my kids, I'd be like, right, I need a timeout. Like, I need a break. That would be my line where I'd go to my husband, I need to go away for a night, or because I've just reached really grumpy mum and that's not cool. And that's a sign that I need to meet my own needs.
mm,
So that's one of the first reasons we can, just actually see that. The second thing can often be around what we're telling ourselves. So if we have a bit of a negative loop going on, that when our child won't listen to us, or they're acting out in some ways, if we've got a bit of a narrative in our head that's like, why are they making my life so hard, why can't they just be good, and we're kind of projecting onto our kids that there's something wrong with them, it's very hard for us to move into empathy, and we're often going to move into reaction. And I think it's really important that we are curious often around what we're telling ourselves around mothering, around parenting, around our children, because that has a big impact on often how we respond.
Yeah.
And then, the other reason why we often snap, and it's usually because, again, we might not have our needs met, but the third reason why we snap is often because it's tapping us into our own wounds and hurts. And this is what parenting is all about, right? Because what often happens is our children will respond or react in certain ways, and it often taps us into our own wounds where we never got our needs met. Now, I see this turn up again and again and again with parents I work with. If you grew up in an environment where it was quite authoritarian, which means, feelings weren't welcome, you were shut down a lot, you were expected to be good, you might have been sent to your room if you misbehaved, there was a real currency of punishments and rewards. If you're good, I reward you. If you're bad, I take something away. We learn pretty quickly that in order to survive, we have to be good. And so we do, the cost of that is suppressing our own feelings and emotions. The cost of that is often betraying what we really feel, because our driver to be attached and survive is much greater. So we kind of abandon ourselves on some level, right? And then we become parents and we're trying to do it consciously, and we listen to podcasts and read books and go, okay, I'm going to do it better. All that kind of stuff happens, right? And then our kids come to us and they're really acting out, and they say to you, I hate you. You're the worst mum in the world. You're a poo head. And they start saying all this stuff at you. And all of a sudden we just tap into rage, right? Yeah, I'm sure everyone can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
And what goes on in our head is this story of how dare you? You know, if I ever spoke to my parent that way, you know, I would have been smacked or sent to my room. Or don't you know what I do for you? My God, like, you know, we get tapped into our own stuff. Now, in that moment, we often don't respond with, gee, there's some story here. I might just pause for a second and lean into what's going on for me. Usually we're in reaction mode because we've been activated and triggered. And we respond however we respond. But what we want to do is we want to start to be curious around what our reactions are. And my invitation is often this: when we are having a big reaction, it's always about us.
Yeah.
And if we were to step back a few steps and go, what is going on for me right now? Then the narrative might be, how dare they speak to me that way? And then if I would say, and now take another step backward, what's underneath that? Well, what's underneath that is a story that says, I was never allowed to talk to my parent that way. And then if we take another step back, what's there? What's there is often a lot of hurt, that I was never allowed to express myself in the way that I needed. And I have to tell you, I've worked with thousands of parents, and the wound comes back to the same place every time.
Makes so
The
much
wound
sense.
is the same. Yeah, the wound is, I was often not allowed to be who I needed to be. And the other story is, and am I enough the way I am? And so often, most of the triggers that we get with our beautiful children will take us back to those places of our childhoods where we never got our needs met. Now, that can be because we were shut down. It can be because, you know, we had an older sibling who used to beat us up and nobody ever stepped in and said that wasn't okay. And then when we see our siblings fighting, we go right into that story again. It can be when our kids are at school and maybe they're having an off day and they're speaking meanly to another child, and then we lose it because we were the kid that was bullied and we're triggered in there. Like, just it's relentless. It's everywhere. It goes through all parts of parenting. Even when my kids became teenagers, I was like, oh, yep, there's 14-year-old me who didn't get picked in the dance squad, and I'm having a massive reaction about my son not being picked in the soccer team, and I'm getting all fired up, and I'm like, oh, yep, no, that's about 14-year-old me. Like, that's the invitation of parenting, is to watch and be curious about what parts we're triggered into, because it's an invitation to go back into those younger parts and do some healing work around it. So then we don't have to carry that forward. That's the gift our children bring us.
That's what I was thinking while you were explaining all that. I was like, this is actually such a healing process for yourself, you know? Yeah.
Our children are the teachers. We think we teach them.
Absolutely.
They are our teachers.
So how do we then as parents sort of find a balance of setting boundaries and, you know, I guess in some ways discipline, but at the same time allowing our children to be free to express themselves? And I guess it's more about, you know, how we manage our own expectations of them and how I guess we think that they should behave.
Yeah. That's very good. You're on the money there. So there's a few things going on with that. So people often say, how did you discipline your children? And I'm like, well, I actually didn't. I didn't use punishments and rewards. I always came back to the place that a child's natural state is to want to do the right thing, is to want to be connected. And when they're not doing the right thing, then there's something else going on there. So, you know, if my son walked into the lounge room and I was like, darling, can you please take out the rubbish? And he's like, whoa, I want to take out the rubbish. And he starts pushing back. Then my thought is to go, what's going on, right? Because usually when he's in balance, he'll be like, yeah, okay, mum, can I do it in half an hour? And I'll be like, yep, sweet.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, there's something there. So when we're looking at behavior, right, and I love that you brought up our expectation, Kate. Sometimes our expectations of what our children should do or what's going on are way higher than what is feasible for them. You know, let's say you have a new baby in the house, right? And then your 4-year-old starts all of a sudden not being able to dress themselves or acting out. Well, we've got to be curious and go, well, there's a big change in the family. And right now my 4-year-old's feeling really unstable. So perhaps I need to bring a little bit more connection and support them. I know they can dress themselves, but maybe they just need a little bit of loving connection in this moment. So when we come back to the kind of discipline thing, I always look at it this way. when a child is acting out or not listening or doing something that doesn't feel good behavior wise, our job is to be curious. So it's firstly, do we meet a need? And once we meet that need, is it okay? Do we try and bring some information or playfulness there? Does that shift what's going on? And then the third thing is if, they're doing something that's not okay, then we need to come in with a limit.
Yeah.
And a limit is calm and it is with an open heart. So it's coming in saying, I'm not willing for you to do that. That's a no now, sweetheart. And we say no to the behavior, but then we say yes to the feelings that come from it. Because again, we understand that what's driving that behavior is usually some stress or some trauma, or they've had a big day or they haven't seen you. And what we do is we say no to whatever's going on, but we welcome the feelings that come from that when they push up against that limit. Now, when we understand it that way, it makes sense as to why we don't need to punish, and it's not about discipline.
Yeah.
Because punishment and discipline is all about you are wrong and I have to teach you right. Whereas the way I look at it is there is no wrong. There is just kids that are trying to find their way back into balance or trying to get their needs met.
Yeah.
And we are missing the clues. It's on us, right? We're missing what's going on here. And again, I think this is the big stretch for adults is we were all brought up in this behaviorism paradigm of good and bad, right?
Yeah.
And naughty, and we must teach you a lesson. But
Mm.
here's the thing, if you even reflect on your own childhood, if you did something wrong, and most of the time when we did something wrong, it's because we needed a need wasn't being met, or we needed some presence and attention, or because we were angry and frustrated, and then we got punished for it. Did the punishment teach us not to do it, or did the punishment just add more fuel to the fire of nobody understands me, this doesn't
Yeah.
feel fair, and more hurt, in that backpack that we're feeling?
Yeah.
And because, again, we often won't listen to how we are feeling or what was the root cause of it, then and this is the big thing, we then start to internalize that hurt as, well, I must be bad because they're not giving me love and presence, so maybe there's something wrong with me.
Mm.
And that becomes a story that many people carry into adulthood, which is, I'm not good enough, I'm not okay. If something doesn't go right, it's my fault. And we become in this cycle of I must be good in order to be loved.
Mm. Wow, it's such a big job being a parent.
Yeah. It
Full
really
on,
is.
isn't it?
So full on.
But it's so incredible to just, have you explain, so much of probably a lot of what we know deep down. But when we're faced with struggles every day, parenting struggles every day, it's hard to remember these things, or it's hard to put in place why these things happen. And,
Yeah.
so the work that you do is amazing. So thank you for that. I wanted to ask you quickly about Woodline Primary School. It's so cool that you've created a primary school. So can you tell us a little bit about this and the philosophy and how the idea even came about?
So if you had ever told me 5 years ago I'd build a school, I'd be like, what? I don't even like education.
You're an educator.
You're changing it. You're changing
Yeah.
it. You're
And
changing the education.
I'd be like, I'm not a teacher. Like, I'd be like, no chance. But it came about because one of my clients, I'd been working with her for quite a few years, and she had 6 children, and we'd be working through, each session we'd work through different kids and different stuff. And one of her kids was starting primary school, and he'd started, and she was like, oh God, it's terrible. Like, they make him sit on the floor all day, and he gets in trouble if he's talking, and there's no choice and autonomy. And she was just like, it just feels horrible. He's hating it. And I'm like, yep, that's our system. And she said to me, well, why isn't there a place like the way that you taught me about aware parenting? Why isn't there schools like that? And I'm like, well, I don't know of any schools that exist like that. And then she just said to me, well, what if we build one? And I'm like, I don't know how to build a school. But she's like, well, I can fund it and I have the resources to build it. Why don't you build the school that you think should exist?
Amazing.
Now, I realize that nobody really gets offered a proposal like that these days of just like, here's a dream, you build it. And I had to sit on it for a few months because I was like, I don't know how to build a school. I can't do this. And, there was a lot of doubt, of course, that came up. And I don't know what happened one day. I remember just having this feeling of like, well, who am I not to do it? It just takes one person to be courageous to do something different, and let's see what can happen. So from there, I did a lot of research. I spoke to a lot of people. We got some amazing consultants who did know what they were doing. But I really came back to what my core philosophy, which I've always believed, is that children can't learn if they don't feel safe. If they don't feel seen and safe, if they don't have choice and autonomy, it's very, very hard to learn. And our system is set up in the complete opposite way. And so Mel and I created, this whole idea of, well, what if it is about putting the child at the center of education, which a lot of institutions say they do, but they don't because it's all about data often.
Yeah.
And so it really was looking through the lens. And, I'm grateful that my 3 children, who've been to many different schools and are all completely different learners, showed me how children learn and what they needed. So we looked at, well, how do children learn best? Some learn with their hands, some learn with pen and paper, some learn with moving their body, some learn by telling you about it. Like, how do we give children the opportunity to learn in the way that feels good for them? How do we hold space for kids' feelings in school, knowing again the same philosophy that when they're out of balance, it's going to be very hard for them to sit and concentrate and cooperate and learn. So how do we create spaces for them to move their feelings so they can come back into balance? So at our school, it's set on a beautiful farm. We have 20 acres and we have, cows
Amazing.
and pigs and chooks and
Oh,
alpacas and all sorts of animals. And we have the opportunity for kids. We have small class sizes and we call our teachers guides, and we have also assistant guides who are in the room to mainly be there to emotionally tune into the kids and go, is someone off? What do they need? Do they need to go out and see the cows? Do they need to go on the swings and move their body? Do they need to go run for 10 minutes? Do they need to talk
amazing.
about some of their feelings? And as we do that, what we see, and we've been open for 2 years now, is, and the whole goal of the school was this, is that in creating emotional intelligence in children, we want them to know, to be able to tune into how they feel,
Yeah.
to identify how they feel, to then ask for support around what they feel, and then be able to move it. And so as we do this as a philosophy of the school, what we see is amazing that kids kind of will just now go, I need to go and have a cry,
Yeah.
or I need to go move my body. So we're not seeing behaviors in such a massive way. And that's how usually children act out, right?
Yeah.
And so our focus really is on that emotional awareness and supporting children to know how to express their feelings, and also be seen for who they are as learners, and
Yeah.
to not just be like, you just have to learn this because that's what we're told. It's like, well, let's be curious about the world. What is the impact of this on the world? All those kind of things. So we're a school, we use the Australian curriculum, we have to collect data like everyone else, we do reports like everyone else, but the way we do it is just in a different innovative way. And yeah, it's a pretty extraordinary place. I just think we're going from strength to strength. And it was pretty powerful the day we opened. I just
Yeah.
cried the whole day. It took us nearly 3 years to do
Oh,
it. It's very difficult to build a school. It costs a lot of money, and there's
yeah.
a lot of policies and governance and legals and stuff that have to happen to do it. And yet when we opened, I just cried the whole day because I just sat there and thought, wow, this is extraordinary that we're creating a place that is different and hopefully making a change for education on how it can be done differently. And yeah, it's been a pretty extraordinary journey.
Sounds incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. Mm.
So, Lael, we could talk to you all day, but obviously you don't have time to do that. And Soph's baby's now awake, and I can hear my kids have just actually got home downstairs.
Perfect.
But before we finish up, if you were to pick just a few key things that we can do to raise emotionally intelligent and resilient children, what would they be?
So I would say do your own work. That's my number one. Like, you got to do the work as an adult on your own story. And the more we
Yep.
can understand our own childhoods and heal them, the more present and open and spacious we will be with our children.
Yeah.
So that's my number one too. We have to do the work as parents. The second thing I would say is learn to look behind the behavior, and understand that all behavior is communication, and that what our kids need in those moments, particularly when they're having big feelings, is a calm adult that says, hey, I see you, and
Yeah.
this is okay, and I'm here, and I'm going to help you move whatever you need to come back into that beautiful balanced state. And the third thing I'd say is we all need to play and laugh a lot more. I think we all, play is children's love language. Laughter is brilliant, and parenting is hard. There is no doubt. But even 5 to 10 minutes of play and laughter and connection can make the world of difference for a child.
Yeah.
And think about what we're modeling to them. If we want to raise resilient kids and aware children, then we have to model what that looks like. And so we've got to do the work on ourselves. We've got to turn up in that way. We all make mistakes too. Like, there's no perfect in parenting. I have messed up in every possible way you can imagine as a parent. And we have to be compassionate and forgive ourselves when we do, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no perfect and we're all learning. And so the more we can sit in that space as well, the better it is for everyone in the family.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time and expert advice, Leigh. We so appreciate it. I personally have learnt so much from you and picked up so many tips, and, you know, so much of the work that you do resonates with the way that I want to parent. So I'm super grateful for you and, you know, people doing things like you in the world. So thank you for your time and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you.